Just an electric intro. Obviously, I love sports. And I'm pleased to be joining you again here from Ponte Vedra, Florida. It is a gorgeous day out. I know that it was raining earlier. Definitely need a lot of rain out here, especially here in North Florida, South Georgia, basically the entire state of Florida, and basically the entire lower half of Georgia's in flames right now. No pun intended. Obviously not a joking matter. Obviously, I love Georgia. Georgia, obviously my home state. Wish I grew up there. Really only spent a year there. Don't remember much. Try to visit as much as I can. Not going to go too much into detail about it, but obviously prayers up for them, prayers up for the thousands of people that have lost their homes. Very heartbreaking. But I'm pleased to be joining you guys here from Ponte Vedra, Florida, like I said again, on this pretty plentiful Saturday afternoon, April 26th. So we were kind of rounding out the month here. Obviously, lots of sports going on. Obviously, the end of April signals for the NFL draft. We'll be talking about that, obviously, along with the NBA playoffs going on. We're nearing the midpoints kind of all the series, kind of into the back leg of the series of the first round as they kind of continue this week. I think by the end of this week, first round should be wrapped up for the most part, I believe. Atlanta Hawks and the New York Knicks kind of are signaling the end. They will probably be the final series that we'll be watching, I believe Saturday, I want to say. So basically we got another week of this first round going on. So we're around the midpoint of there. Obviously, like I said, Hawks and Knicks, an electric series. I know that coming into this, especially with how they played late in the season a couple weeks back, when the Hawks were kind of surviving for that final playoff spot, that 6th seed, not wanting to play in the play-in tournament because that was just a complete massacre. Obviously, it is every single year. These play-in teams come into the actual tournament and, not to sugarcoat it, they shit the bed. Obviously, play-in teams, they don't really deserve to be in that spot. Obviously, the Atlanta Hawks have been there for years. I talked about it last week. But yeah, so that's what we got going on. Hawks and Knicks, 3 seed, 6 seed. And we kind of knew that it was going to be a 7-game series, obviously, with the rivalry that they've had in the playoffs past few years. Obviously, this will be the first time they're facing the playoffs without Trae Young. Last Monday, really, we talked about kind of what Game 1 was going on. Obviously, the Knicks started off pretty strong for the most part, and then the Atlanta Hawks took that second game in Queens. So they will be back in Queens on Tuesday for the 5th game. Obviously, the home-and-home series, they were kind of split. Obviously, Game 1 went to the Knicks and Queens. Game 2 went to the Hawks and Queens, kind of set the tone going into Atlanta. Atlanta Hawks, they take a 2-game streak. First game in Atlanta, second game last night. Did not go the Atlanta Hawks' way despite Jalen Brunson going down, I believe, fourth quarter. They only had him out for like a few minutes. Nothing too crazy, nothing too dire, but regardless, I mean, it's not really much of a scare for Knicks fans. Obviously, Jalen Brunson's a great ball player, but I mean, it just seems like C.J. McCollum is just really taking him by storm, taking the entire team by storm. But he's not taking Karl Anthony Towns by storm. He had a triple-double last night, led the Knicks to a great win. Him and Anunoby, OG Anunoby, quite a name, God. He had, obviously, leading points only by 2 points, 22 points, 10 rebounds. Obviously, Karl Anthony Towns with 20 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. Guy was just playing everywhere here and there. Obviously, great center for the Knicks. So yeah, that's what we kind of got. That's kind of the momentum they got going into Game 5 in Queens. Hopefully for them, not for me, not for the Atlanta Hawks, so they can take that game. Obviously, the Atlanta Hawks are kind of going back into hostile territory. The game will bounce back to Atlanta on Thursday. Hopefully, the Atlanta Hawks will be in a better situation to kind of either close out the series or to kind of tie the series. And then, like I said, it'll finish next Saturday, April 20 or May. I want to say April 31st or May 1st, May 2nd. Gosh, I'm just losing the track of time. I believe there's 30 days in April. But either way, next Saturday, we will kind of have, hopefully, the conclusion to what will be, cinema in this series. Obviously, we look around the entire rest of the slate. Obviously, the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Toronto Raptors, they're in a game right now playing. It's kind of been back and forth. But Cleveland, obviously, with the 2-1 lead, looking to take game number 4 today. San Antonio and Portland. Victor Wembanyama missed game 3 due to the NBA's concussion protocols. He will be back in the rotation tonight. I believe that starts honestly, now, that game starts now as Cleveland and Toronto, they will be finishing out. So that's what we got. Victor Wembanyama, he will be back in the rotation, obviously. Very big scare for San Antonio. Portland hoping to gain some traction with that, but he will be back in the rotation. So huge, very bad news for Portland. Boston, Philadelphia, 2-1 series. Not too much going on there. I believe Boston will kind of take the next 2 games with ease. I believe they're finishing out in Philadelphia tonight. That will be kind of the final of the series, and then we have Los Angeles, Houston later tonight. That'll be kind of one of the later games. I believe it's a 10 o'clock game that'll be happening in Houston. That'll be the final of the home series in Houston. And it looks like the Rockets are kind of one and done. They will be out. LeBron is having a generational run right now, kind of his farewell tourney, as a lot of people are saying, but we really don't know. Obviously, he's playing with Bronny right now. But yeah, that's what we got going on in Los Angeles. LeBron's playing lights out. I mean, I remember seeing a TikTok comment a second ago saying 2018 LeBron was kind of like Thanos, and then now we got 2026 LeBron looking like Doctor Doom. Obviously, you know, the movie's coming out. Great analogy. He's a villain. He is a baller, and he is the GOAT. Don't argue. There is no argument anymore going on. Obviously, we've known this. But obviously, you know, I was talking to somebody last night when I was working between this conversation with LeBron and Jordan as the GOAT. I mean, it's just 2 completely different eras. You can say this for, you know, a lot of people that want to say Shohei Ohtani's, you know, up there. Clearly, that's a drag, but I mean, by the end of his career, he definitely will be up there. I mean, Shohei Ohtani's generational, obviously being a 2-way player. So that's what we got going on in the Sunday slate today. A lot of basketball going on today, a lot of golf. I know the Zurich Classic in Louisiana is finishing up. Very interesting indeed. I thought I don't know what I was saying last Monday when I was talking about Miami Championship. That might have been next weekend. I don't even know. PGA Tour is kind of skidding out until RBC or until the U.S. Open and the Open kind of go on. So yeah, Monday slate tomorrow, we got Detroit and Orlando. Detroit has a 2-game lead, despite losing that game 1 to the Magic. Oklahoma City and Phoenix. Oklahoma City with a 3-0 lead. Not shocked. I'm not shocked that they are kind of pretty much sweeping that series. Obviously, you know, defending champions. SGA's playing lights out. Obviously, Jared McCain obviously came to the team mid-season. Minnesota, Denver. Minnesota with a 3-1 lead. I believe Denver took game 1, and then it's kind of just been from there. I mean, that's basically a great analogy to put it. It's been kind of down from there. Obviously, they had a huge fight last night between Jaden McDaniels and Nikola Jokic. He got ejected from the game. So I think that, obviously, Monday is holding very bad things for Murray, Jokic, and Denver. That game will be happening in Denver, though, so hopefully they can turn something around there. But basically, that's what we got going on. A lot of these earlier series will probably end within the next couple of days. Obviously, a lot of these series like Cleveland and Toronto, they might carry into the later of the week. San Antonio, Portland, maybe, potentially, I don't know. Boston, Philadelphia, I don't really know. I don't really see it. I mean, I think Philadelphia could get another game in tonight. Who knows? Or in the afternoon. But yeah, other than that, I think a lot of these are kind of, you know, a couple more games and they're out. Obviously, Knicks, Hawks, without a doubt, will be a Game 7 series, or 7-game series if it ends up ending by Thursday of that Game 6. I'd be kind of shocked. I don't see the Hawks dropping another one, especially not dropping Game 7 or 6 in Atlanta. I don't see that at all. So that's what we got going on in NBA. Obviously, award season's around the clock. I'm trying to remember when MVP's announced. That'll be interesting to watch. A lot of people argue about that every year. Obviously, Luka didn't make the running, like I said, last Monday. So that'll be also a topic of discussion for a lot of people when it comes down to the actual voting and the obvious decision for MVP. So now we're going to a more colorful area. Obviously, we have the NFL draft. Obviously, I had to talk about this without a doubt, and I had to talk about it very extensively. We got a lot of interesting takes, a lot of hot takes, and that's basically what the draft's going on. We got a lot of reaches, got a lot of, obviously, undisputeds. Obviously, Fernando Mendoza goes first overall to the Las Vegas Raiders. So, yeah, Draft began Thursday, finished up yesterday afternoon. Mr. Irrelevant, I'm trying to remember his name. I know Garrett Nussmeier. I was thinking for a fat minute Garrett Nussmeier was Mr. Irrelevant because I wasn't watching the draft in real time, but I was watching that he was very late pick to the Kansas City Chiefs, which I think is a very interesting pick for them. Obviously, having a little bit of depth. That's great depth. Obviously, we saw his Senior Bowl. I talked about him after Senior Bowl. He played a pretty damn good game. Did have an interception. Obviously, that interception was not on him. It was on his receiver. We've seen the highlights, seen the tape on him during that. So that's what we got going on. Obviously, we can talk about him. We can talk about Diego Pavia going undrafted, still not even being picked up to this day, obviously, as people are still being signed and picked up. So that's what we got going on. So when we talk about steals, when we talk about kind of reaches, I'm going to talk about steals first, or just basically the winners of the draft. And honestly, I think first looking at it overall, I'm looking at New York, and I'm looking at, honestly, Atlanta. And this could be very biased. This could be in a lot of people's eyes, could be a very biased take. But realistically, Atlanta had themselves quite the draft. Obviously, the Jets and the Atlanta Falcons are two of kind of like my top teams. Obviously, we got the Cowboys too. They had a really good defensive draft early on, and then kind of went through. I mean, they don't really need to polish anything on offense. They have George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb. Obviously, you might want to strengthen up that offensive line a little bit. Dak Prescott, they're still believing in that guy. But that's basically what we got going on. I mean, Cowboys had a good draft. Obviously, we talk about, the reaches for picks. We can talk about the Cardinals, so we'll talk about that in a minute. But basically, my elaboration on New York and Atlanta is that New York, obviously, they had a lot of volume early on in the draft. First round, they had 3 picks. They had, obviously, David Bailey. They drafted first from Texas Tech. Then they had Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon, the tight end. Huge guy. Great blocker. You can kind of work him into both blocking, catching. Love that for them. Great for New York. That's huge. Obviously, they needed that. They haven't really had a staple tight end ever. I know they got C.J. Uzomah like a few years back. I don't think he still plays for the team. Obviously, Jets have been irrelevant, so it's not been part of my kind of, knowledge. And then it was Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana, which I thought was a great receiver. Obviously, he had the great catch against Penn State, and that's where a lot of general people know where he's from. Obviously, part of a national championship team with Fernando Mendoza, part of a great scoring offense. So, obviously, great for the Indiana Hoosiers. So, keep an eye on them. I have them currently under one of my teams that can make a real flip with this season. Obviously, they went 3-14 last year. A flip, I don't see them being, obviously, a high-winning team. I can see them being a mid-tier winning team. It really, honestly, comes down to how the front office and how the NFL or their coaching staff can kind of respond to this draft. Obviously, Aaron Glenn, he kind of gives me worries, obviously, being more of a kind of defensive scheme coach, and obviously them having, Justin Fields still, if they even have still Justin Fields. Obviously Geno Smith, they brought him back. Goodness, man, he could be a real home wrecker as we talk about it, the New York Jets, and we talk about the team that they built around him. He can be a real home wrecker for the guys. I mean, they have holes, don't get me wrong, around defense and around the offense, but I think that realistically he can kind of be the make or break, that make or break person for this team. Kind of like what we have in, Arizona. The quarterback position can be make or break. Obviously, they just drafted Beck. Don't want to go too out of line because I'm talking about all these narratives at kind of one segments throughout what I'm talking about with the NFL draft. But yeah, Jets, I think that Geno Smith can be a real home wrecker. I think Aaron Glenn can be too. I don't have doubts about his personality, about how he is around the team. He is a great leader in that sense. It's just, obviously, we've kind of seen how it played out last year with the whole team. It kind of discombobulated and never really got started. Even though people had high hopes for them, they started off like an O and however skid. They started off with a really bad skid off the season, and it just never kind of picked up. Atlanta, however, call it a reach, call it biased, but I think that they can really make a good move this year, especially with the news that we got, I believe it was a day or two before the draft. Obviously, James Pierce announced that it was announced that obviously with Ricky Jackson and kind of the judge and the whole case that he had with that whole violent act, that he could be doing pretty much a probation act, and charges will be dropped. He won't have to worry about it. It's like you can't violate this certain clause for 6 months and he'll be fine. Charges will be cleared. So that'll be going into the season, pretty much the entirety of the season, damn near. So obviously, you got to keep an eye on him. But I mean, obviously, if he's back in Atlanta, which they haven't made a decision, I'm assuming that they're going to keep him in Atlanta. Hopefully, despite all that, I mean, they really need the guy. Especially, obviously they picked up a couple guys in the draft that will be crucial to their pass rush and their front seven. Harold Perkins, for instance. But I mean, it just really comes down to that. I mean, James Pierce was a huge make-or-break decision, or a huge make-or-break for this team, this defense. I wouldn't say so much the team now. I mean, the Atlanta Falcons really hit their holes, way better than anybody. That's why I'm kind of saying, okay, Atlanta can be a threat, a threat to the South at least, especially with kind of how things are going now. Buccaneers not really strengthening their squad. I mean, obviously they got Ruben Bain, they got Ted Hurst from Georgia State. But yeah, no, Atlanta, when I talk about them, talk about the defense, obviously James Pierce, that could be huge. We retain him. Seems like we will retain him. Everything will be all right, just like new. Obviously, I'm not doubting that Roger Goodell will give him damn near a season's suspension for what he did. Obviously, season suspension for that. Obviously, would I say it's deserved? Not really, but let me tell you, because every single time I go back to, obviously these things that people do, whether it's the Rashee Rice's murdering people, not murdering, but killing people in accidents, car accidents, people getting charged on drug charges, people getting charged on, hit and runs, domestic violence, all this stuff, real threats, and I'm always going to drag this back to Calvin Ridley's instance in 2021 with this whole gambling thing. Obviously getting removed for an entire season and pretty much killing his entire career. But, I mean, yeah, I'm just going to bring this back to Roger Goodell, and I'm going to bring him back to this instance because I think it's just very awful. I think at max you see like a 6-game suspension, which, I mean, I don't want to say it's going to kill the team. Obviously, we still have Jalen Walker, but I mean, it's just kind of the severities and the levels of these crimes that people are getting charged for, people are getting accused of, and how the NFL is treating it. Obviously, they're treating a gambling addiction like terrorism compared to a world-class kind of crime or charge that someone like Rashee Rice has, where you suspend him for like half a season, quarter of a season, not even, or a third of a season. But I'm not going to go too much into detail about that. But regarding the rest of Atlanta's defense, obviously with their first pick in the 48th overall, completely in the second round, they pick Avion Terrell out of Clemson. Pretty much mirror identity to his brother in already Atlanta, AJ Terrell. So now you have depth, and also you have kind of that boom cornerback, which is Avion Terrell. Really liked what I saw from him from Clemson. Obviously, kind of a fight for the cornerback 2 spot between him and Kobe Bryant. A lot of people not putting enough respect on Kobe Bryant's name, which really angers me. I think Kobe Bryant is a great cornerback. I think he's shown a lot of development last year. I really hope that he takes a huge leap going into training camp and going into the preseason and then obviously into the next season. But not a lot of people have really paid too much attention to him. A lot of people kind of skid over him in college. He was an undrafted free agent last year for the Atlanta Falcons. Obviously, he had a rough preseason outing, but he has shown development. He's shown a couple of good reps against Mike Evans in the game Tampa last year in December. So obviously he has flashes of this stuff. If he can just keep it consistent, he can just keep himself, well-rounded and, like I said, consistent, then he can be easily cornerback 2, obviously in tandem with Avion Terrell. That'll be a good mismatch combo to have. But yeah, put some more respect on Kobe Bryant's name because he will be coming eventually. He'll be coming eventually if he hasn't already came. Pause. All right, so basically that's what we got going on. Avion Terrell, AJ Terrell, obviously they're going to have a little bit more bias towards him, being brothers. But that's going to be interesting. That's going to be a great duo. The Terrell brothers in Atlanta, Terrell Islands, kind of going to be interesting what we got going on there. I wasn't too worried too much about secondary. Obviously, we have Jesse Bates. God forbid I know the second safety that we got. Really hoping it wasn't. No, we lost Richie Grant a while ago. But obviously we had Simmons or something like that from Denver. Denver that we got. Justin Simmons? Is that it? Justin Simmons, it might be. Obviously, he's not. He was a free agent. He still was a free agent as far as I'm concerned. But obviously, this is what going on in Atlanta. Atlanta lost a lot of guys, a lot of front pass rush guys. Obviously, David Onyemata departing, Caden Ellis departing. Caden Ellis went back to the Saints, kind of like a spy agent for the Atlanta Falcons. He literally left New Orleans to go back to New Orleans like 3 years later. So that's what we got going on, obviously. Holes in the linebacker core, front seven. The pass rush core, obviously, James Pierce coming back. Like I've said again, that's going to be huge. Jalen Walker coming back off his rookie year. I know he was battling a couple of injuries within like a few weeks skid in the middle of the season. That's kind of where we kind of played a little trashy. That's where we played a lot of the good teams, though. We played literally the Super Bowl teams, Patriots, Seahawks, within like a 4-3 game. God forbid, I think it was back-to-back it might have been. I think we had like a bye week maybe in between those two games. But I know that we played Seahawks and the Patriots within a decent proximity, so that's obviously not good at all not to have Jalen Walker. But I know Jalen Walker, he made a lot of noise in that Patriots game. That might have been where he kind of started the injury. I mean, he was kind of bouncing back between a couple things I knew. Kind of later on in the season, so obviously not ideal for him, not ideal for the Falcons, but hopefully ideal if he can kind of keep himself healthy going into next year, especially when we might need to lean on him a little bit more, especially with, kind of the availability that we'll have with other guys like James Pierce. But Atlanta Falcons, it gets Harold Perkins later in the draft to kind of strengthen that linebacker core. And here's the thing with Harold Perkins is because obviously I haven't been paying too much attention to LSU football. I don't really do that in general. Obviously, I've kind of been keeping an eye on every now and then between Garrett Nussmeier and the guys. So I really have a lot of high hopes for Garrett Nussmeier. I really like the guy. I liked him during the Senior Bowl, like I said earlier. But Harold Perkins, obviously a lot of people were raving about him a couple years ago. I feel like his name just kind of disappeared. But it was still kind of in the back of my head that he was, good guy. Obviously, a lot of people might have been talking about him as like a second round, first round pick, maybe 2024, after 2024, 2025 season, maybe. Obviously, he had the ACL injury now that I'm going back and researching about this guy. He had the ACL injury, and now he's kind of tanked. We picked him up around like fifth round, I want to say, because I know we picked Zachariah Branch in the third round. So yeah, obviously Harold Perkins, I think that if you can keep the guy healthy, I think that he can retain back to his old self where people were really talking about him. People were really raving about the guy in Baton Rouge. And I think that's a huge pickup for the Atlanta Falcons. And honestly, I have him on my steal. I have him on my list of kind of steal guys. I could be reaching really far into the cookie jar for that one. But, I mean, obviously he's also on my injury-prone list. Like, if you can keep these injury-prone guys healthy, they'll be a real problem for quarterbacks, for offensive lines across the league. Basically, that's what we got going on. So, obviously, like I said, Zachariah Branch, he's also drafted the Atlanta Falcons, and I think that he'll be another steal. He's also another guy on my steal list. I could be really biased with this, but I really like the guys that Atlanta has picked up. Obviously, it's comparable to 2 years ago, when we had we were picking a bunch of the offensive guys in the first round when we knew damn well that our defense was god awful. Obviously, things have kind of worked out for the better for all these offensive guys: Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Michael Penix. Still time to tell on that one. Obviously, unfortunate circumstances for him. But I think that Zachariah Branch will be kind of one of those guys that you need to keep both eyes glued to. He might be not biased. I'm going to be picking him probably in fantasy because I think that he really has a lot of similarities to Tyreek Hill, where a lot of people were because obviously Tyreek Hill went 165th in the 2012 draft. God, it really tickles my brain how old the guy is. But yeah, no, Tyreek Hill was drafted late. Obviously, we saw what he did in Kansas City. With Miami, it was kind of a different story. I think that Zachariah Branch is pretty much damn near the same player. I don't know if a lot of people compare him to Tyreek Hill, but Zachariah Branch, I mean, dude's a beast. I think obviously when it comes down to his size, a lot of people are, just like kind of avoidant. But I mean, having the big Drake Londons that can make these contested catches, make these Moss catches, and then have Kyle Pitts, great tight end, great blocking tight end, can kind of pull him and kind of open up these gaps for running backs. Obviously, having a running back or receiving back in Bijan Robinson, and then having Zachariah Branch, a speedy guy that can kind of get open downfield, also be a screen pass guy. And I do want to say that for kind of Zachariah Branch's player and how he was used by Mike Bobo in Athens is that I think that Zach Robinson would have had a field day with this guy. Not saying that we should have kept him. God, no, we should not have kept him. If we still had Zach Robinson, we would be cooked. Obviously, he's in Tampa Bay. That's why Tampa Bay is going to be going downhill. I don't care if they got Ted Hurst. I don't care if they got reincarnation of Mike Evans, as people would be saying, in Ted Hurst. Zach Robinson's your offensive coordinator. You are fucked. Obviously, spending like a couple of years with the guy, I know this. But yeah, basically, this is what we got going on. Obviously, the Falcons have a completely different identity now for the most part. Whole new front office, whole new coaching staff. Kevin Stefanski likes to utilize tight ends, so obviously we're going to see a lot more out of Kyle Pitts. Really glad that they didn't trade him during the draft despite the franchise tag. But yeah, so this we got going on at Atlanta. Obviously, we got a lot of guys, huge, and I talked about reaches. Talked about teams, kind of digging at the sides, not kind of going for the main prize, kind of going, I wouldn't say out of their comfort range, or they're basically out of their need range. Obviously, from kind of, you say you got quarterback shooting concern, like the Arizona Cardinals, easily. Kyler Murray's out of town. He hasn't been the answer for Arizona since like 2023, last time they made the playoffs. He's kind of been bouncing back between injuries. He's been, like, I guess, discipline issues. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people are making jokes about him for playing Call of Duty. But, you come into the draft, you're Arizona, you're thinking either a defensive dog, or you're thinking, you maybe draft Ty Simpson, or maybe you trade up to get Ty Simpson. I don't know. I mean, obviously they had a second pick later in the draft. I'm trying to remember who they picked. But I mean, when you're the GM of the Cardinals and you're walking into your third pick of the draft, and you get Jeremiah Love when you had just signed Tyler Algier to a deal. You still have James Conner, and there's a fourth guy. It's really in the back of my head. I can't remember his name. But the fact that I'd have to name a fourth running back for the Arizona Cardinals that could pose a decent threat, it's just, what are we doing, dude? I think a lot of people have said, a lot of people I know have said, Jeremiah Love, great player, great running back, generational, maybe. Tough runner, elusive, great receiver back. Obviously, we've seen that in South Bend, but horrible pick. Oh man, I don't think that front office has much longer in Arizona. Obviously, they draft Carson Beck, beginning of the second or third round. So I mean, now you have a quarterback. The only thing is your quarterback, when it comes down to clutch moments, he tends to drizzle a little bit of caca down his leg. So that's what we got going on in Arizona. Obviously, a lot of things to talk about. Obviously, Marvin Harrison, strong receiver, great receiver, had a pretty solid rookie debut. Obviously, when you have kind of a Jacoby Brissett started most of the year last year for the Cardinals. God, that's rough. That is rough. So obviously, man, reaches galore. We have another reach at pick 13 out of Los Angeles. Ty Simpson goes to the Los Angeles Rams at 13. And that is quite the gamble, as I like to say. Quite the gamble. A lot of people can agree. A lot of people think it's a risk. It's a risky move that could pay off. Who knows? It's really disappointing for Georgia fans because obviously we know the whole thing with Stetson Bennett. He kind of was eyed as potentially the next guy in Los Angeles. Doesn't look like they might be keeping him. I really hope that Stetson Bennett makes the cut this offseason after workouts, after spring workouts. But yeah, no. Ty Simpson, obviously great quarterback. Kind of saw him as more of like a later first-round guy. Obviously, people were saying that the Rams might have been able to go up and get him in the later half of the first round. Cardinals, a lot of people were eyeing him going to the Cardinals, which honestly would have been a better scenario, honestly. I mean, him going that high, top 5 pick, I don't know, dude. But other than that, you don't really have, in the terms of quarterback, too heavy a draft. Obviously, I mean, one of the Heisman finalists for quarterback didn't even get drafted this year. He still hasn't been picked up by teams. So that's what we got going on. Obviously, yeah, so the Rams got that. Obviously, Matthew Stafford coming off an MVP season. They let him know, and a lot of people, there was this article that went around, and a lot of people talking about it. Adam Schefter talked about it literally during the draft. Obviously, the Rams had kind of talked to Matthew Stafford earlier that morning, and they said that they wanted to pursue Ty Simpson, and they were going to do everything in their power to, and they did. They let Matthew Stafford know. Obviously, a lot of respect in that office compared to the complete shit show that we had a few years back with Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins and that whole scenario. A lot of people talk about it, and it just kind of triggered old memories that I didn't want to remember. Speaking of Kirk Cousins, great for him. Probably going to be a starting guy in Las Vegas. Don't expect Fernando Mendoza to start off rip. That will be horrible management from Clint Kubiak and the guys in Las Vegas. That would be horrible. But great for Kirk Cousins, obviously securing a deal. Not too huge, but obviously, brilliant agent. So yeah, Ty Simpson, 13. I mean, only time will tell. Obviously, they got that pick from Atlanta last year with the whole James Pierce situation, the whole James Pierce trade, obviously paying off for the Atlanta Falcons. Got a scare with the whole felony situation, the whole arrest situation. But yeah, and here's kind of where I go into my list of guys that I really want to bring some attention to. Obviously, I got names to watch. I got injury-prone but dangerous guys. I kind of talked about Harold Perkins being one of those guys, and then teams that could flip the switch. So, let's start off. Names to watch. Ted Hurst, wide receiver, Georgia State. Thought he was going to be a tight end when I first saw that guy. He is huge. Not sure how tall he is. He looks like a pretty damn tall dude, but he looks huge. He looks buff as shit. Kind of like Kenyon Sadiq. I mean, kind of like he has the same drip skill set, kind of. Just like tight-ass shirt, tight-ass jersey, big pads, bigger guy, buffer guy, huge arms. Not like any sleeves, not anything like that. You don't want to look like a Ryan Williams lookalike where you're painting your nails and shit like that. All that's all that sissy shit. Obviously, we have Zach Branch. I talked about him. Speedy, Tyreek Hill lookalike, pretty much. Just, again, size. Size was his main demeanor. Obviously, he had the whole thing in Athens last week for G-Day. Nobody gave a shit about that. He kind of went where people thought he was going to go. Maybe a little less, maybe a little lower, but honestly, pays off for the Atlanta Falcons, so that's all I give a shit about. As long as he goes to the Atlanta Falcons, that's all I care about. C.J. Allen linebacker out of Georgia, and you're kind of seeing a trend with a lot of these guys, Georgia guys, obviously Georgia State, going with Ted Hurst, that's that guy. Georgia, I mean, I think it really just comes down to, kind of guys that kind of stick out off the rip, guys that I wanted in Atlanta. I wanted C.J. Allen in Atlanta. Obviously, they needed linebackers after Caden Ellis. Obviously, I think we only had, Arnold Ebiketie, and that's really it. I want to say we have Nate Landman. Nate Landman's in LA, I think, or I think his brother is. I don't know if we still have Nate Landman. God forbid. We talked about C.J. Allen, Harold Perkins Jr. Guy to keep an eye out for. Like I said, he's kind of in my names to watch, but also my injury prone list. But dangerous. Bud Clark out of TCU, safety, I want to say. And it's just kind of comes down to the team that he was drafted to, not necessarily his individual skill. He's been playing since 2020. This guy has experience to the brim. And as a safety with experience, obviously we know him for getting bashed by Georgia in the 2023 SEC or NF National Championship. So obviously it's not too enticing, but, what can you do? That is a generational squad right there. Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett's name is just floating around all throughout this episode, and it's really just I'm gonna cry. When I stop recording this, I'm gonna start bawling out and crying. It's just, man, Stetson Bennett, man. It's rough. It's rough. This just in, actually, the Raptors beat the Cavs, so that is what has a tie series we got going on now. Okay, that's what we got going on. So we got a kind of Knicks Hawks esque looking series we got going on in Portland. Or in Toronto, goddamn. So that's what we got going on. Obviously, Nicholas Singleton is going to round out my names to watch, and this could be biased, but I've been watching the guy since freshman year, and I really liked the way he looked. Obviously, running backs coming out of Penn State, we know how powerful they can be. Obviously, only tracing back to really one name, which is obviously Saquon Barkley. So that's what we got going on. And injury prone but dangerous. Got a few guys here. Jordan Tyson out of New Orleans. Obviously, we've talked about how many, when we're talking about kind of analysis of him going in a draft, great receiver, great contested, can really be a great deep threat. And I think that's exactly what Shaw needs. However the hell you say it. Tyler Shaw, that's what he needs in New Orleans. Obviously, he has Chris Olave as well. Maybe throw a little bit more hospital passes to, a little less, Jordan Tyson. Maybe just stop throwing hospital passes at all, because we obviously know what's going on with Chris Olave. Everybody's trying to kill him. Every DB's trying to kill him in the league. Harold Perkins, obviously we talked about him. Obviously that huge ACL injury kind of nerfed him a little bit, but I think that if you can keep him healthy, he'll be great. Kind of, not necessarily, I don't think he can be a depth piece for Atlanta. I think that he can be a starting piece, an X factor for the guys in Atlanta, especially for that front seven that needs a linebacker like that with Arnold Ebiketie and what we got down there. Kobe Young, obviously another biased pick from Georgia. He goes to Cincinnati to pair up with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Yeah, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. Whole Cincinnati thing, it's kind of like a better scenario than Arizona, but still really bad scenario with management and all that stuff like that, because they're not really going after like their needs. But obviously Kobe Young's a later pick. I think that, Cincinnati not being able to pick first round and kind of not being heavily loaded with picks is going to hurt them. Obviously, Hendrickson, he goes to the Raiders. Went to the Raiders or Ravens. I'm trying to remember. Obviously, no, they don't have Hendrickson anymore. But yeah, so that's what we got going on. Kobe Young, I thought was a great guy. Great contested grab, great kind of end zone, like red zone guy when you're talking about like back shoulder fades, where you're lobbing the ball up, just say fuck it, throw it up to a guy. That's good for them. I think it'll be a good depth piece for the Bengals. If he makes a move, if he makes a big boom for the Cincinnati Bengals, expect him to kind of be there if he can make the cut. That is, obviously, it wasn't necessarily injuries that plagued him last year. It was the false accusations that he got about was like domestic abuse or some shit like that. Just kind of the plague that's been going around with these big players nowadays. Well, just college players and NFL players. So now we're going to go into what I'm going to talk about is my last thing. Which a lot of these, realistically are just, they could be reaches, but who knows? Really. But this is kind of what I think as teams that could essentially flip the switch. Going into 2026 and kind of eyeing how they've been doing in the offseason, how they've been doing in the draft, now that we've kind of wrapped everything all up. So, first off, obviously, you have the Las Vegas Raiders. Obviously, they have attacked the front seven. They have attacked their defense this year in the offseason. Undisputedly getting Fernando Mendoza first pick overall. That's going to be huge for them, obviously. Any team being cured of the Geno Smith plague is a great team. Obviously, we saw that with the Seahawks year after they drop him off and they get Sam Darnold, win the Super Bowl. So that's great. So now that the Raiders have dropped off Geno Smith, they have Fernando Mendoza and Kirk Cousins. Could make the Super Bowl. Who knows? It would piss me off because Kirk Cousins, obviously the whole thing with Atlanta. This could be a reach, but I want to say Titans because, I mean, obviously Cam Ward, he has Cardinal Tate now, but he still doesn't have, like, he's still going to be running for his damn life. But Cardinal Tate, maybe he gets open. Maybe him and, Traylon Burks they got in Tennessee. God forbid I know any guys in Tennessee. But if he can get open for the guy, cool. They also have Nicholas Singleton. They got from, later in the draft, Nicholas Singleton. He goes to the Titans. Great for him. Obviously having a solid running back. I think they had, Tony Pollard, maybe? Which honestly wasn't a bad running back. Jets could be also a reach. It really just, like I said, comes down what I said earlier, to if Glenn Allen, or Aaron Glenn, goddamn. Aaron Glenn and Geno Smith can kind of, be those guys. Obviously, Justin Fields, if he comes in, I think he'll be fine. Dude, he's got everything now. Obviously, Kenyon Sadiq, Omar Hampton. I think Justin Fields, really, if he wanted to play great this season, he could play great. Now, if they even still have Justin Fields, that is a question that we will need to be answered at a different time. I'll let you know. Giants, yeah. Honestly, Giants. I think that they'll be fine. Obviously, they went kind of everywhere and heavily all over the place. There was Arvell Reese they got, huge for defense. I believe they got an offensive, Maui Goa, I believe it was, out of Miami, the guard, huge for their offensive line. Obviously, they're going to be getting Cam Scatterbo back after his injury. Obviously, Jackson Dart, Malik Neighbors. Not too familiar with the rest of their offense. I believe they have, Wan'Dale Robinson, all those guys in New York. So I think that really they can make a huge jump, especially defensively. They had, obviously they lost Dexter Lawrence. He goes to Cincinnati, but still, despite that, they still have a great pass rush. They kind of just fill the gap, and they'll be fine. They'll be perfectly fine. Falcons, obviously 8-9. We talked about them, obviously kind of filling a little bit of the gaps in the defense. Some gaps were filled better than others. Obviously, just depth and kind of being able to retain guys. I think that Ian Cunningham has set the Atlanta Falcons up for a pretty solid future. Expect them in the playoffs maybe a couple years from now, maybe a few years from now at max, or kind of back in the mix. Maybe this season, who knows? Could be a reach, but who knows? Saints are going to be the last, obviously staying in the NFC South. They're going to be my last one. Obviously, Tyler Show, he had a great kind of second half of his season last year when he started for the Saints. Still got swept by the Falcons, though, but I think he only played, one of those games that they got swept in, or two, if you played both. Yeah. Still think the Saints will get swept this year. Fuck the Saints, still day one. I'm dead, pretty much. Obviously, they got Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State. Huge for them. They got Christian Miller out of defensive tackle out of Georgia. Great run stuffer. I think it will be great for that front seven in New Orleans. So things are kind of looking up for the Saints. Obviously, in a lackluster division, expect the Bucs to take a dip. Maybe the Panthers to kind of either stay the same, which, depending on how the Falcons and the Saints kind of surge, that won't be enough for them to make the playoffs at 8-9 again. But obviously the Falcons, time will tell, obviously, with this whole new coaching staff. And last thing I got to talk about is Diego Pavia not making the draft. And really, I'm not necessarily confused because obviously the guy has character issues. But I think that he doesn't understand when to kind of ego check himself. It's really interesting to see, or really interesting to hear what was actually said in these interviews at the Combine and pre-draft and all these meets. Just anytime he met with a coach, anytime he met with anyone like a scout, what he said to them, because guy's a Heisman finalist, and then 250, 260 round, or 260 or something picks later, dude's not drafted. Hundreds of free agents are signed, and he's not one of them. So, looking like he's going to Arby's or McDonald's is one of his kind of backup options. Could be going to the UFL. To be realistic, to not be a smartass, he could be going to the UFL. But realistically, dude's definitely fuming right now. He's pissed. I'm kind of not necessarily pissed, but I'm kind of confused too, because don't get me wrong, he's a good ball player. But they picked FBS guys before Diego Pavia. The Falcons even signed an FBS guy before Diego Pavia. I'm trying to remember I don't even know what team this is. That's how bad it is. But we're talking about North Dakota State guys. We're talking about bottom of the, I would say bottom of the barrel when it comes to competition, but bottom of the barrel when it comes to like the level of playing. So that's what we got going on. So it's just, disappointing for him, disappointing for the guys, but great draft, great weekend in sports. A lot of good stuff going on. Obviously, we got next week, we have the Kentucky Derby, Churchill Downs, and, you can get me hooked on any other sport. You can get hooked on soccer. I've been hooked on basketball and hockey as of lately. But, you can never get me to enjoy derbies. I lived in Kentucky for, 3-4 years? Never enjoyed it. The atmospheres are all right. You had broads here and there. You know what I'm saying? You had dimes. You had eye candy. But you don't have... I don't explain. I think it's literally just the betting. There's no way that people go to Churchill Downs. There's no way that people go to these derby arenas and are like, oh my god, dude, this is cream of the crop, dude. I would watch this over the Masters 9 times out of 10, bro. And it's just NASCAR. It's NASCAR but for the Amish. It's just I don't get it. I don't understand why people care about the derby so much. And it's literally they're just betting. It's betting. It is people gambling their entire savings away that they've saved up working their crappy working class job into horse racing when you can just do it on GTA. Go to the Diamond Casino on GTA and you can do the same exact thing. But yeah, I really don't expect that. I don't understand it. Yeah, that's what we got going on. Derby. The Derby. NBA, MLB's continuing going on. We don't got anything going on really until June. I think that's when All-Star break is. God forbid, I know. Timeline's all screwed up. But, great. It'll be great covering the follow-up with the draft and all that stuff. But despite that, another great episode from Mic'd Up. Chase your dreams. Don't let anybody tell you what to do because they don't know you, Great Sunday, beautiful Sunday. Might go take a walk. But I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their Sunday. Kind of when you get off work, if you do work, take a deep breath, rejuvenate yourself, get yourself ready for the week. Hope everyone has a great week. We're rounding out May. May's coming up. When we talk about sports in May, there's pretty much nothing. We got NBA Finals. Obviously, it's not nothing. MLB. But another great month is ahead. Obviously, I won't be seeing you guys until the start of next month. So I hope everyone has a great, start to their month. Finish out March strong, or April strong. It's been great talking to you guys here from Ponte Vedra, Florida. I will be back with you guys next Sunday, May 1st or 2nd. Oh, man. But it's been real, Catch you guys next Sunday here on Mic'd Up. It has been Michael Schneider. Peace out, guys.